It's all fun and games until someone gets hurt. Hi, loves, and welcome to the sober reality. The truth about life, or at least the one here on earth. The truth is that our reality or experience of life will keep on hurting us and feel painful until we awaken to our lessons. The lessons we choose to learn so we have the courage to love. Because unless we find and have the courage to love, we remain forever imprisoned by our own fears. And the only way out of this imprisonment, or the so-called matrix that we live in or experience, is by learning. And not just learning something general or vague. It's about understanding what our lessons are and learning how to integrate them in our lives. And what these lessons are shown by the Saturn placement in our birth charts. It is the lessons we have chosen in this lifetime so we can find the inner freedom of living on the path of least resistance or free of fears. Okay, maybe being completely fearless is a little bit idealized, but we can learn to be in control of our own fears so they no longer need to dictate the choices in our lives. And why do I say we choose? Because nobody out here is trying to make us suffer or to punish us. But we will run around like wildlings, like the ones from Game of Thrones, the ones who live beyond the wall and have this barbaric lifestyle, often being in war with one another. Yeah, I'm speaking about those untamed savages. Those we can still see present today, but in a more modernized version, or they're usually referred to the type of people we call unconscious, or those who are living unconsciously or not mindfully of where they stand in life and where they're going. Which, when you think about it, it's the majority of the population. And it's about time that we start growing out of it. Unconscious is pretty much someone who lives with no purpose or meaning in creation rather than war. Because it is much easier to destroy something. But when we speak about creation, it does require a large dose of courage and our ability to transcend beyond our physical survival abilities. But anyhow, let's explore the origin of the hurt and pain we experience and why we choose it and why the devil keeps on coming along. By the devil, I refer to our fears, shadows, and all of the unpleasant things that we don't want to face in our lives. For that, the devil keeps on coming back to ground us, to show us what is real, here and now, so we can meet with the truth, with the reality of this physical and material existence. Not universal, but earthly truth. That we are, in essence, still a soul and a spirit, but we do live and have this physical experience. We live in a physical body. But to keep the balance between these two dimensions, we need to integrate, to adapt our spiritual essence to our physical existence. Otherwise, we experience inner separation, which is what causes fear. And the only way to dissolve our inner fears is by integrating those experiences within us. Hence comes one of the most popular quotes by Charles Darwin. that it's not the strongest or most intelligent of species that survive, but the one that's most adaptable to change. And the ability to adapt to change requires discipline, resilience, and courage. But why? Because ultimately it teaches us about the most important lesson in life: love. Because even if you think about it, unless we're able to learn about one another, to adapt to our differences, and here I'm not speaking about changing each other, because we cannot change who somebody is in essence and core, and what they need, and where they're going in life, and what they desire, and what their goals and visions are. No, we cannot change that. But once we awaken to the truth of who we are as individuals, then we can willingly choose to adapt to them and be with them. Because life is a constant change. And once we are with somebody, we go through different changes of life. We go through different stages and experiences. And unless we are able to take responsibility both for ourselves and for the relationship of how it's growing through these changes, and remain flexible enough to adapt to these changes, which are inevitable. One thing in life that's certain is that there is always going to be change coming up. That's just the natural flow of life. So that we don't keep on experiencing pain and suffering and breaking more and more relationships for the inability to face these obstructions or changes, then we need to master adaptation. And also in our ability to master adaptation, we learn to be more flexible in moving through these changes without our physical structure, our mind and body and emotions crumbling into pieces. And you know how nowadays, when somebody gets sick or has some physical problem and there is no adequate reason for it, many times a medical professional or we self-diagnose as, I have this experience because of stress. Everything is because of stress. And there is different types of stress. There is the stress where we are controlled by our own fears, which causes even more inner disturbances and anxieties, which does in fact make us physically sick and mentally ill. There is this other stress, which is or I would explain the feeling more of adrenaline to grow. The stress of being able to face our own fears in the process of mastering adaptation. And I'm not saying it's easy, but when we understand it and have why and know the direction of why we have this difficult experience or stressful experience at the moment, now your mind is no longer stressing out of trying to define a reason. It already has this sense of peace and understanding why you're going through this experience. And the more acceptance you have of your current circumstances, the more that stress is not going to so highly impact you, and your fears will start dissolving over time. As I said, when we do not know and don't understand what and how and why we need to adapt to something, when our mind does not recognize the purpose and the physical function we have here, then we end up unlocking and experiencing a wide spectrum of untamed emotions. You remember going back to the wildlings? But at the core, behind all of these uncontrollable emotions lies fear. And for different people, these emotions can play out differently. For some can be in the form of angry outbursts. For others can be anxieties, depression, or any other emotional experience that causes you inner disturbance. Pretty much anything that prevents you to embody a state of inner peace and love. And here I want to make the nuance that inner peace does not mean being complacent in life, and it's not a state we achieve when everything is perfect. It's not a goal, because when we become too comfortable and are in a constant state of complacency with life, then we, even if we don't recognize it, we lose the desire to live, to grow, to expand. And this does not just apply on physical level, this also applies on spiritual level. This is why I say we lose our desire to live. Because the spirit is that which wants and desires to grow. You know, just like the sun. The sun's function is to shine bright. So when we're too complacent with life, we lose that shine. We lose our light. Without light, we don't have a life force pretty much. But it's important for us to maintain this light. That's why we experience changes. Because we need that desire for us to be and live on our path to creation. You cannot create something that you do not desire, you're not passionate about. But that's going to require growth. That's not going to happen with complacency. So inner peace is about being at peace with yourself, even when you're experiencing these unpredictable and changeable situations in your life. It's about embodying this state throughout the process, and not something that we're here to experience as like an end goal or end result. Inner peace is about inner knowing. It is rooted in this deep faith and belief in yourself, that you have the ability to face anything that comes in your way, regardless of the outcome. Because technically, when we don't have inner peace, we are constantly being controlled by our turbulent emotions, which is that creates the matrix and keep us enchained in our own web of fears, where we feel like we have no control over ourselves or our own lives. When you think about it, at the end of the day, the person that you spend the most time with is yourself. And when you feel like you have no control over your own emotions and thoughts and your experience of life, it is not a very comfortable or enjoyable experience in your own body, in your own sense of self. But let's not get this twisted, because fear, it does play a role in our lives, and it is important. It is important and serves the purpose of keeping us on our track of growth and evolution. Because without fear, we can get so easily lost in the infinite pool of possibilities and pleasures and temptations that at some point we have absolutely no idea what the hell we're doing here. But fear is only that. It is a navigation, it is direction that help to keep us on track. It shows us where we need to adapt. It points directly to what our lessons here are. It is neither us or a dead-end road. It's simply a pointer. And in the large scope of things, keeping the balance between our essence, our soul and spirit, who we are, at the core, outside of this physical material experience, which, as I've said, are represented by our sun and moon sign in our natal chart. And while we keep the awareness of our spiritual essence, while still experiencing the joy of life, like life not somewhere else in Fantasyland, but here on Earth, and going through all these changes and challenges and lessons that we're here to learn. It is one of our biggest challenges, yet it is what is the truth about life, of how to maintain our own individual happiness and joy while we flow through and go through these lessons or not so easy experiences. Some of you may think, well, if I'm here to be happy and experience joy and love, then why do I have to deal with all this pain and unpleasant events in my life? Because unless we understand the purpose of our fears and what they're here to show and teach us, we will forever remain in a constant state of victimhood, as if we have no power and control over our own lives, and everything is constantly being controlled by outside people, outside circumstances, and this way we place our power on everyone and everything else outside of us, but not us. And this is the state of victimhood, taking no responsibility for our own lives and our own experiences. But our lack of taking responsibility for our own experience is that which actually creates the matrix. And the matrix, since now it's a very trendy term to use, it does not live anywhere outside of us, or it's made by somebody else and we're controlled to be a part of it. No, the matrix lives inside of us, and we choose to live in the matrix the moment we do not want to face our reality, our own truth, and the lessons we're here to learn. Yeah, it's not gonna be easy. And yeah, to some it may feel like it's gonna suck. But eventually, it is the thing that is going to give you that feeling of power and inner belief and freedom to choose. So the only way we can break free is by learning our Saturn lessons and learning to love them. Despite how we feel about them, we just need to accept them. Because we have made this choice for a reason. I have no control over even my own birth chart, let alone somebody else's. And this is why I say this is an individual learning path, because we have chosen our own set of lessons. But eventually, no matter what each individual lessons are, the purpose for them, for all of us, is to learn and experience what is to feel free, freedom of your mind, to learn what is freedom and love. And yes, well, it's kind of the same thing, technically. You can very easily tell this about a person from their Saturn placement, where on the learning path or learning journey they are in their life. Whether they deny learning their lessons or they're currently moving through them. Most often when you speak with somebody who is, let's say, over 55, 6, most of the times, not always, but most of the times they have already experienced several times facing them. Well, since they had 2 Saturn returns, they've got probably a little bit more beating than you to know and come to understand and face their own personal limitations and fears. And that is something that is completely, absolutely, completely independent from how things look on the surface. And I'll give you an example. Imagine someone is a billionaire and they have all of the material pleasures you can possibly think of. But that exact same person has a Saturn in Cancer. And their biggest fear, even though it's not something you can see on the outside, their biggest fear is to create emotional closeness with somebody and to have their own family. And let's assume it's a guy. It's probably just more easier to picture this scenario if the subject in our example is a male. And let's say this guy already had few failed marriages, where in his perception he thought that as long as he provides and is financially responsible for this family unit means that he has created his own family. But just to be financially and materially the provider, especially in this case when this person apparently it comes easy for him to build businesses, generate wealth. Here in this example, the lesson is not fully learned because he is using his skills that naturally come to him, and he implements them in the family structure or marriages he has created. And then one marriage breaks, a second marriage breaks, and he does not understand why he's giving so much. And he's so successful in all of the other areas in his life but his relationships. He simply cannot understand where it's all going wrong. So in this case, what will be much easier for him is, instead of diving deeper to understand the root cause, to accept the fact that he is not good in relationships. Be tempted into that fear of that relationships are just not going to work out for him, and instead what will be more easier is to, let's say, pay to someone to be with him just for the sake of having this status of being in a relationship for the world to see. But there is no more depth to it. There is nothing more than his financial contributions that this relationship stands on. There are no certain set of emotional connection or deeper values. Or he can even have the free pass to get all the hot girls in town because he can afford that. But even despite how everything looks on the outside, inside when he is alone, deep within him, he feels loneliness and fear. And no drugs, no girls, no amount of money seems to be the cure for his unfulfillment. And to everybody else on the outside, it can seem like he has the most glamorous and successful life that you can possibly dream of. The thing is, somebody with this placement, Saturn in Cancer, and we're gonna go later into each placement. But this individual lesson is not to test his ability to provide materially, but his lessons are in his ability to create deep emotional bond and closeness, to be extremely vulnerable and naked with another person. And this is not something that you can pay for. One of the 200 hot girls that you have got yourself to bang, and do they use the word bang or bank? Actually both work. To bang and bang. To be their bank. But it's to create that deep emotional closeness with the one person who is truly interested to invest in you and see you for you and deeply cares about you, and to allow yourself to be cared for, and for you to equally care back about this individual. Here I'm speaking about very, very deep emotional bond. And even, let's say, all of his businesses go bankrupt tomorrow and he loses all of his possessions, that person is still going to be there for him and care about him. His lesson is in the one person that he can merge with emotionally and find emotional confinement and stability in. Again, not for his ability to be a material provider, but his ability to create these deep, nurturing and caring emotional bonds. He needs to learn how to care about the emotions and feelings of others. So he would experience all these failed relationships and marriages to show him that emotional investment in a person is equally important as your business investment if you want to create balance in your life. And if you want to create more fulfillment and not proceed or make choices in your relationships that are based on fear. Tough one? Oh, you bet. It is. But in many cases, and I've had few situations like that, I've worked with few people where later in their life, they would go through a very troublesome experience, very emotionally troublesome experience, where they would start understanding the value and how important it is to have somebody like that next to you. Everything you possess would be somehow taken away from you, or suspended, or you're not going to have full access to it, whatever the case might be. Even his health can be taken away. He can be in a hospital, completely in need of help, where his money and power and influence cannot buy him instantaneous pleasures or quick fixes. And he's going to be placed in such a situation where through the experience he's going to start to realize the value of why it is so important to treasure your deep emotional connections. I think the movie was called Me Before You. It's probably one of my favorite movies, but you won't believe how when you're put in such a situation and let's say somebody is then coming in your life who is the complete opposite that you would normally consider having any intimate connection with, like in that movie Me Before You, where she has like this quirky personality and dresses in a very odd way, but eventually she becomes the person that he's able to create the most sincere and deepest connection with, and where he also starts understanding the value of having a person like this next to you, is something that he needed to awaken to. And I believe before he decided to, you can watch the movie, I'm not gonna spoil the end for you if you haven't watched it. Before his last day, he came to a place of inner peace and fulfillment because he understood his lesson. And that's what it means to awaken to your own truth. And that's the whole purpose of Saturn. And you will notice the area of your life where you have the tendency to be the most pessimistic and feel very insecure about and don't have much faith and confidence that you can deal with that. That's where your fears reside. It is the area where you find it the most difficult to adapt your spiritual self to your physical existence. Somehow you just don't see. It's very difficult for your mind to understand and see the meaning in it. And it can be about your love life, your health, your career, you name it. Again, we're going to take a look where we each individually have Saturn in our birth charts and what our lessons are here to tell us about our fears and insecurities. And the moment we reject and deny this truth, our truth, we adapt a pessimistic perception about this area in our life. Meanwhile, when we accept it and understand it, we become awakened to life. And awakened to life, it's not this fantasy dream life where everything is suddenly so easy peasy and breezy for you, and everything is just handed to you on a silver platter. Oh, I wish that was the case. But awaken to your truth and finding the peace in it. Once you understand what's the meaning and purpose of it, that you can finally accept it. It's very difficult to find peace when there is no acceptance, but it's difficult to find acceptance when there is no understanding and meaning. Because in order for us to grow and to understand what we need to learn, before we can even do anything about making the right changes and choices, we need to be directed to the truth of it and the why. The why is that gives us a meaning to change. Our personal why. That can only start from a place of presence. Present to the reality of our situation. I like to think of it this way. Presence is a midpoint. It is the midpoint which shows us where we are in this current moment and what is our direction, where we need to go. And only in this midpoint we can integrate our spiritual essence or our soul and spirit to where we are now, which is our physical presence right now and what Saturn is showing us and what our lessons we're here to learn. Because spiritual death is only when we don't have a why to where we need to go. And spiritual is just being present and completely aware of what's going on. And only from that place of awareness and acceptance, we can only then start choosing differently and making the necessary changes. But we need to get to that point of presence, to that point, to that midpoint. And when we live in this midpoint, we live between birth and death. And we are in the middle of the change. And by being in the middle of the change, we embody the change itself. We become the change. We become the driving force of change of our own cycle where we feel stuck. Because now we're present, we have a why, we know where we're going. So we can start choosing differently. We can start implementing the necessary changes from a place of awareness. We're coming to face with our own sober reality. And this is called living. I wish I could tell you life is supposed to be something more glamorous or magical. And at different points in our lives we can have these experiences. But ultimately, living is in our ability to adapt and be present and be in that midpoint. By accepting everything that's coming our way, and we still find the joy in whatever we experience, it's the whole point and purpose of our whole earthly experience. Otherwise, we can go back to heaven and have an endless party in the space of infinite and limitless possibilities. Unfortunately, the truth on earth is a little bit more limited. That's why we have Saturn, that big daddy. By the way, do you like my tie? I'm terrible tying ties. I just know how to untie them. Whoops, did I say that? I think it serves well for my businessy look today. Or strict. Or Saturn. Or Big Daddy issues look today. As I said, it's all fun and games until somebody gets hurt, and I better start moving with this video or I'm gonna get hurt by my battery dying soon. Hopefully that's not the case. So let's continue. And when we live life, this is what I like to call winning or being successful in life. Because only living from that place of presence or in that place of our midpoint doesn't mean we're average. It means we're whole by being fully and wholly aware of our place, of our sense of self. And that sense of self in different periods, in different stages of life, it's going to change. It cannot remain the same. I mean, our essence, our soul and spirit, they are the same. But their place in our process of growth and evolution, it's going to change. And they would require different things. But with this now, we can go in a different topic. So let's get back on track. My point is that being in this midpoint, in presence, we are living from a place of our truth. Look, like I said, maybe today might be true for me that I, let's say, am struggling with relationships, and that's because of this and this and this lessons I haven't learned, or certain choices that I've made up to that point that have prevented me from creating a more fulfilling experience in relationships. Eventually you master this, 10 years down the line, you don't have a problem with relationships. But let's say your lesson is still to, for example, if your lessons are concerned with your physical health, but you have this relationship and you start letting go of taking care of your physical body, then you start having, again, if it doesn't play out within your relationship, then you start having business partnerships or business problems that again are impacted by you neglecting your lessons. So the you in that point in time now has outgrown these relationship in terms of intimate relationship issues, but now they are starting to play out on the business scene. But at the core lies the fear of taking care of your health and your body. So it's all interconnected and goes back to our lesson. So winning and being successful in life is that no matter what stage you go through, to be able to remain present with your lessons and why you are here to learn them, but also aware of your environment and the people around you. And that's a lot of things. And as you can imagine, the more you grow in life, the responsibilities get bigger. And it's a challenge to maintain the balance between everything. And it's only possible when you master adaptation, your ability to adapt to all of these different changes. But that is the only thing that's going to guarantee you success in the reality of each experience that you go through as your life progresses. Because it allows you and gives you the ability to merge your essence with your experience, and that means there is integration. And just because, let's say, we know everything or we feel everything does not mean that it comes so naturally and easy for us to be able to integrate it and to integrate it in each moment in time. And we need integration to be able to experience life and live, or otherwise we're going to be in a constant fear of death, and that's not living. Or some even exist in theorizing everything of how it should be and how it should look like, but not put anything in practical reality. Even if you cannot apply it, then it's much easier to be tempted and resort to escape routes through fantasies, substance abuse, etc. Because we need to meet with our human reality, and we don't want to meet it, then we face anxieties and all of these unpleasant emotional turbulences that are also cause either physical disturbances or mental illnesses. And integration only works where we can put all of these theories, and there is so much information out there that I believe many of you, I'm not saying anything new here, that many of you are aware of what and how things should look like. We need to put them into practice into this physical earthly practice instead of running away through these spiritual constant escapes. Our spirituality comes when we have the courage to be face to face with our fears, things that are uncomfortable, the things that we somehow inside of us we know that we want it, but we just don't have the guts to deal with because we don't believe we can do it. Being spiritual is about believing. So you need to apply it. The process of applying it, you're gonna be tested on your belief in yourself. And that's why you have these lessons of where you need to apply it. If you're constantly going into these spiritual escapes, like drugs or other woo-woo things, it completely takes you out of your humanity. The spiritual journey itself becomes through the process of applying that which you know and facing your lessons. And yes, I also meditate too, and it does help me get to a place of being more centered if I feel troubled. Just by meditating, it's not going to help me. It's going to help me perceive or approach my lessons in a more from a place of more peace and acceptance, but it's not going to do the lessons for me. We still need to be physically active and participant. So just by doing Om, which I wish was the case because I love being in my own internal world and meditating, but just by Om, we cannot integrate anything. We need physical, practical actions. And for you, for everyone, they're going to look differently. Integration is not about perception, it is culmination. Think of it this way. Integration is like an orgasm. It is the midpoint between death and birth, where the truth of whatever you're doing starts to resurface. It is the unified truth of realities. Just like with an orgasm, to be fully culminating and powerful, first need two bodies put into practice. And no, it does not work with toys. It does need to be with something that has a heartbeat. And this also does not apply to animals, please. You sick kids over there. I'm speaking about a human being with a heartbeat, yes. And there needs to be friction, physical friction. But here's a big but. When this practice is not done aimlessly, it's like, whoa, I take you because I feel horny, boom, 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 boom. But there is like no emotion, there is like no charge. It's just rubbing, 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 rubbing. And it can get like dry and not moisturized. And even if you orgasm, it's just like it's missing something. So there is like no juice in it. It's like dry. It's, how can I say this? Unfulfilling. Now, when you start pouring emotions and desire into it, because at the end of the day, we're speaking about humans, and we're human, and we only connect through emotions. So see, it doesn't work with toys, because you cannot connect to something with an emotion when they cannot reciprocate back to you with an emotion. So yeah, dead bodies, toys, like these sick things we take out of the list. And you have this friction, and then you pour feelings and emotion into it, because only through the depths of pouring these feelings and emotions, when there is this intimate contact, we create passion. And passion is like a steam train. The more the steam expands, it creates the force to move itself. Look, I'm not a train expert at all, but in order to experience change and have the courage to move yourself through that change, to move yourself into integration. You need passion. You need true, passionate orgasms. That's why we say when you have a sexual experience where there is no emotional involvement besides the physical release, it does not do much for you to be able to face and experience and really understand what it is to have this powerful orgasm, to have this powerful courage to change and transform. It does not give you that charge to move yourself. So how your train is gonna go, let's say if you're having a sexual experience and you're just doing it for the physical sensation. There is no deeper connection between you two. This is how your train is gonna go. It's like sex. You get to the point of orgasm, it's like then you continue again and again and you can switch it up with whoever you want, but then suddenly somebody comes along and then there is this like crazy passion, these like untamed emotions, and you're like, what the hell is going on here? And you're trained from going like orgasm, it's like and then your train is like boo, and then it's like boo, and you're like, oh my god, this is so intense. Hell yeah, it is. It is supposed to be, because that intensity is what opens up your potential. It shows you how strong of a charge you have within you when you have this emotional integration. And that's truly one of the most profound experiences. Okay, I'm only gonna go more into this topic. But yeah, that's my point. And unless we integrate, we will continue looking for escape routes, like alcohol, for example. That's a nice bottle as a way to say cheers to victimhood existence. And don't get me wrong, there is absolutely nothing wrong with alcohol, or not just alcohol, any addictive substance for that matter, as long as you are the one who has control over it and not the other way around. Because when we do not have control over something in our own personal lives, and I'm not speaking about controlling the people around us, I'm speaking about our own choices and habits and behaviors, that only shows that there is a part of us that we find difficult to integrate. So when we experience difficulty to integrate, we face big daddy issues, big bubbly and boiling setbacks, big bubbly and boiling hardcore setbacks. Because when we don't want to awaken, Big Daddy steps in and whips our butts until we start seeing everything so vividly and clear. Until we no longer choose to drown in pessimism and feel like the victim in our own painful and purposeless existence, nor fly away into the dreamland of optimism, because once we take off the rose-colored glasses, then the physical reality can again be extremely difficult to manage, and we meet with that pain of personal limitations and restrictions. When we're able to go through this process of integration, we start living in realism. It's the reality of life that we need to grow up, that we are here to grow. Because in essence, living free of fears and awakening to real love is about growth. Growth that it's only possible through our ability to adapt to the changes. Growth is necessary in cultivating the attitude or practice of accepting a situation as it is and be able to deal with it accordingly. It's not about panicking or suddenly feel like we want to commit suicide or completely lose our mind because we just don't know how to deal with whatever is happening to us. But understand that our main role here is to create, and any challenge that we're faced with and that comes in our life is just calling us and is trying to bring our ability, our inner source to create something. It's similar to that saying, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. And there is a reason why you're given a specific situation, even though in that moment it could feel as if your world is falling apart. And yes, in some cases people do experience some extremely troublesome and traumatic events, but for the most part people start emotionally collapsing over small things, such as, say, somebody you dated for 2 months and now they're no longer in your life, and suddenly you feel like your life is over. Because many times we're very good at creating things in our head and just leaving that creation to live there. But when it comes down to putting it in reality, into practice, this is when we truly start experiencing the difficulties of integration. And it doesn't matter if the idea or the fantasy in your head has to do with, let's say, certain creative project or a relationship or family structure or whatever it is. We can all have certain ideas or images or visions in our mind. And when it just lives in the head, it gives us this notion that this is exactly how it's going to play out in life and it's going to be easy. Not that it cannot play out that exact same way in life. You have this desire or this dream for a reason. When you start putting into reality, what you will notice is that maybe sometimes you need to go through few different failed creative projects until you actually are able to manifest one that's you're really proud of and really satisfied with. Or you need to go through different relationship experiences where they're maybe all fall apart until you are able to create that relationship experience that you imagine in your head. So when you start putting all of these ideas and visions in your mind into practical reality, not that they're not possible. Yes, they're possible. But it does not mean that right away it's going to manifest in that exact same way and it's going to be from the first time. So what's important here is to understand that are we still able to keep that vision in mind while we go through life and seek to have that experience. And the test here is when we don't see it manifest, are we so easy to give up or crumble? Because when we say or show that we so easily give up or so easily susceptible to falling apart at the first obstacle we're faced with, we're indirectly telling ourselves that I don't fully trust and believe in myself, in what I envision is possible and what I want. And then when you don't believe in that, you become so easily able to give into temptations and pleasures and compensate with what you actually want. And this shows that I don't have the courage to love. And then you adapt this whole perception that nothing in life will ever work out and everything is a doom and gloom. But we rarely dare to question, did I defend what I believe in at all costs until the end? No matter the price I had to pay for dealing with all of these difficult scenarios that were presented in my way. Because that's Saturn. It rewards us at the end. But first we're gonna have all of these tests and exams. Tests on our resilience. Tests on our ability to integrate. To integrate our spirit. Because imagine the spirit as your fuel, as the power behind each and every one of your moves. And once you have the power to love, despite all of the challenges you are faced with, besides all the fears that you have to face within yourself, then you understand at the core of true love and the purpose of it was to teach you courage and resilience and to respect yourself and ideas and visions, despite how many times they were tested or rejected or unapproved of by anyone else. Because when we are integrated, we develop realistic perceptions, not delusional. And what are realistic perceptions? It is the quality or fact of representing a person or a thing or a situation accurately or in a way that is true to life. And only when we're able to see something or someone clearly, only then we can truly love them. And not be in love with them because they fit our own fantasy or our idea of them, but love them for them. Because only from a place of integration we have a choice. Only then our free will is unlocked. And yes, we have big daddy issues in order for us to be free to choose. Otherwise, we remain as children in the system, and you know how easily children are being manipulated. They're constantly dependent on either their parents or others. And integration plays out when we no longer use our limitations and fears as excuses, because trust me, we can all have our own BS that we use as an excuse that we are unable to do or be or believe in something. That's why we have Saturn that comes in and it's like, I'm not gonna take any of your BS. Either you face me, or then if you want to suffer and feel pain, then it's also your choice. And miraculously, if we decide to face our fears, as we're taken out of our comfort zone and face our challenges, when we face where we feel limited, we actually awaken to all the potential and resources that live in us. So all that seems like pain and punishment at first is what actually opens our eyes to all of the magic that is us, that lives inside of this body. Because think about it, when we live in harmony and constant state of pleasure, our resources, our abilities, our potential would never come to the surface, like never. If we never got fat, if we never got sick, if we never messed up, if we never experienced a heartbreak, then we would not have a reason to move. We would not have a reason to change. But only through change we're able to discover what we are truly capable of. And that is what propels us on the direction of living a life that is meaningful, finding that role that we're here to play and serve from. Because reality is what we all want is to be free from our own limitations, and this is the only source of true happiness we're ever going to find. We have people around us that either support us in that journey, or those who don't, by wanting for us to remain in the same place, because that's where we feel safe for them. But at the end of the day, nobody can make us or me or you happy, but only our own selves. when we are able to transcend beyond our own personal limitations. And of course, find the people that support us in that. Because if we want to have a hard time, as we already are having a hard time, we don't need another person for that. Because on your way to integration, you're going to meet many who try to either tempt you, distract you, want you to fit their idea of you, or live up to their expectations, or project on you their own fears. Try to pull you back and keep you stuck in the same place, or not believe in you. There are many of those people out there. Why would you need to add them to your life when you're already on this path of integration, when you are needing to face your own set of challenges and limitations? So in choosing the right people for us would be to choose those that are interested in learning about our own individual path and support us in that, and that we're able to support them in their own lessons. When we start understanding our function as such, only then we can build strong and healthy relationships. They're not based on codependency or expectation that the other is here to make me happy, but rather we are here to support each other through our own journeys of growth and share the happiness together. And one of the main lessons we are going to learn when following our path of Saturn is that it teaches us about and challenges our ability to trust ourselves, to have faith in ourselves. Because only then we can bring also that faith and trust into a relationship. We can bring that love into a relationship. When we're not able to meet or face our Saturn limitations and challenges, that's pretty much saying that I choose fear. And where fear lives, there is no place for love. As I've said in one of my quotes, I cannot give you a reason to love me. Love is not a reason. Love is a choice. So when we feel like we're in a position where we have no choice, then we're in a place of fear. Therefore, this whole romanticized idea is that, oh, I cannot live without you. I need you. I need you to be happy or survive. No, that is not true. Yes, we do need each other. I agree. But that is the whole illusion of love. Because in reality, true love is that I don't need you, but I choose you. I want you. And this is the most exhilarating feeling when both are on the same page and both make this as a free choice because you want to. Because nobody forced you in it, because you don't have to. It's because you choose to. And you choose to because you're a free person who has the right to choose and make their own choices. But that privilege or that power only comes with taking responsibility for following the path of our own lessons and being able to integrate them in our own lives. So you can look at Saturn as the teacher of integration, or the teacher that's teaching us about love on earth. Love only lives from a place of free will. You cannot force somebody to love you. You cannot manipulate anybody to love you. You cannot buy anyone to love you. Only if somebody chooses to love you, they will love you. But again, that is a choice that they make. And you can make your own choices as well. And if you're sitting here and you're saying, well, I don't like these lessons and I don't like my life, and I don't want to learn any of this stuff, then it's pretty much saying as I don't love and I don't want to love. And I don't want to have that experience at all. And that's fine. It's just important to distinguish the difference and make that as a clear choice. But to think that in this life we can indulge in whatever we want, or we can buy whatever we want, is a complete illusion. Because one thing we cannot buy, and that's time. And the only thing that gives our time here a meaning is our ability to love. And we cannot buy that. We can only integrate that. And so if you want to have a meaning, you better start integrating. And since we're still wild savages, we often don't value our time and what we invested in until we start losing and having these harsh lessons. Really start understanding the pain of the absence of love. So we can then start to appreciate the joy of its presence. And as I said before, the process of integration only is possible when we start adapting our spiritual resources to our physical limitations. We need these limitations, we need these fears, because they help to mold us, to take the shape and form we are here to live from. Imagine when we speak about an architectural building. This is something I also use to describe the birth chart analysis that I do. Even your birth chart is just like a blueprint. It's an architectural plan. And all these planets and things, it's just material used to adapt to the whole picture, to create how this whole construction is supposed to look like and the function it's supposed to serve. And it's super impressive to see ourselves as like a whole construction project, and having all of these resources and energy that we carry, but we don't know what the heck we're supposed to do with it. And then we start applying it and we start building that structure. And trust me, once you start doing that, you're never going to be bored again, because it's a whole lot of work. And you can apply this with relationship, with your children, with your whole environment. You're not going to have time to watch shows like the Kardashians or The Bachelor and all of this stuff. But to mold yourself in this purposeful physical form, to integrate it, it all comes down to valuing your time and investing it. Because how do you want to be useful or functional for your kids, for your partner, society, whatever it is, if you're not functioning and using your own resources and potentials in a meaningful way? So unless you are integrated, you cannot integrate other things in your life, or that eventually there will be like crutches that you've been compensating on or with, that would start falling apart, showing you again that there is parts of you that are still not integrated. Yes, we'll have obstructions to be able to use all of the material or all of the energy or planets or the whatever way you want to look at it. That's in our birth charts. It is here to guide us, to help to build it, but it cannot do it for us. We need to create, we need to build that architectural plan. We need to move and manage our own construction process. And as you can imagine, in any construction process, sometimes we may lack certain materials, or when it comes down to us, we might not be aware of them, or we might need more time to get them, or travel further away to gather those resources. And sometimes we need extra labor, and sometimes the prices go up, and there is different time involvement in each piece of the puzzle. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters is that we take responsibility and become in charge of managing this process. And then eventually we start seeing that project, we're seeing ourselves start coming to life. And the more we grow and we build ourselves, then we create the space, we create the physical space for other people, family and children and hobbies and meaningful jobs and all of this stuff, but we are creating it. And the people that start taking those places is why we need them, or at least the ones that support us in building it, because they can help speed it up, that growth process, or they can slow it down. They do all need to be factored into our time management process. While we still don't lose focus and we keep our goal, our vision in mind of what is the direction in which I'm growing. And you see, it's not about becoming that and then I have space for people and things to come into my life. No, it's not about being at a place of I'm perfect and I have everything in my life that I need, and let's say now I can have a relationship or now I can have a child. No, because if it's like that, then we will never have any of these experiences, because it's going to take us probably a whole lifetime, even if we get to complete that whole structure. And like I said, we do need all these other components and people and things and experiences in our life, but we know how to choose what's right for us once we start building our own structure. And there are no coincidences, because for us to be born with a specific birth chart or that specific blueprint that we have, it only means that we carry the resources to build it. We carry all of the resources we need to experience it in this life, to create it. But to awaken to the resources that we have lessons, which we go back again to Saturn. I think I'm quite a lot repeating myself, but I feel like it's necessary because it's quite an important topic that encompasses so many different components. And that's when we speak about meaning and purpose, you don't find meaning and purpose by traveling to the other side of the world. The meaning and the purpose lives in you. You create it by facing your challenges and the lessons you're here to learn, by adapting to our own limitations, by integrating them in life. And this is also shown by Saturn, but also by the sign that lives on the cusp of our 10th house, which shows how we can benefit lifetime and in this lifetime. But to create that high peak of the structure of the puzzle, we need to accept our own personal limitations and work in that direction. And something I believe sometimes we get too stuck when we go to therapy or psychology, although that's very helpful, but I've noticed so much time is spent on dwelling on the fears and how we feel and all of this stuff. And yes, that is important, but there is a reason for them. And unless you know the why, you can spend years in therapy, years in dwelling on this stuff, years in trying to heal and see small amounts of progress or recovery or success. Because without a why, you cannot integrate it. And every mind needs a why. You know why? Because we all have a why we are here. And just to very generally and briefly go over, I'm going to go more into details in the long form of the video, which you can get from the link below. But very generally, just to go over the signs on your 10th house cusp to give you an idea of how your brand, your personal brand or your image or your constructional plan is supposed to look like in this life, the shape and form it's here to be molded into. I'm going to quickly go over the different sign placements in the 10th house, and you can look at your own natal chart and see where it says 10th house and what sign lies on the cusp, or what's your midheaven sign. Yes, you're going to have difficulties in in building that and embodying that image, but this is your highest potential. So for example, right now you feel like you're having a really difficult time to make things happen in your life, and you're here to please everyone and compromise in your relationships, but you have Aries on the 10th house cusp, and then you're wondering why you are experiencing so many setbacks and problems in relationships and so many difficulties in your job, where you're trying to be so nice and please your boss, meanwhile you're not being respected. Well, you have Aries on your 10th house cusp. So all of these BS and challenges you're facing in your life are to say that you are born to be a leader. You're not born to compromise. You're not born to be nice and sweet. You're not born to stay on the sidelines and be part of the pack and the group. You're born to be a leader. So you're going to get stepped on and disrespected time and time again to realize that the power lies within you, that you need to independently go out there and make your own opportunities and make your own decisions, and don't give an F about what anybody else thinks or what anybody else wants. And unless you start understanding that these difficult events in your life are because of pushing you in the direction of, I feel so much pain and I feel so shitty about my life, to the point where you are no longer tolerating to take this inner turmoil that you're experiencing and say to everything and everyone else, F you, I'm gonna do it my way. Only then you can start awakening and understanding why all of these events and things actually took place in your life. Until then, you're just gonna be in your own little pity party. But honey, you're born to be a leader, not to be in a pity party where you cannot make a decision and don't know which way to go. You're supposed to show the way. Where are we going? What are we doing? And those who want to follow you, they're gonna be fully behind your back. And those who don't, they'll just fall out of your life. But that's not a reason for you to not be decisive or stay on the sidelines or doubt yourself. So in general, if you have any of the fire signs on your 10th house cusp or MC, we're speaking about Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, you're here to be in a leadership position. And again, they're all going to play out differently depending on the sign, where Aries is more going to be about the one setting the stage, the fighter, the initiator of projects, of things, where Leo is more about being the leader, but the one that sits in the throne and is more of this inspirational figure, where with Sagittarius is going to be one who is guiding, or more like a guru. Through their knowledge, they're going to lead, or through their wisdom, they're going to lead. But we're still, when we have a fire sign, we're still speaking about somebody in a leadership position. When we have, if it's an air sign, if it's in Libra, Gemini, or Aquarius, you're here to communicate or be in some sort of managerial role. So you're going to have difficulties in communication until you are able to be the responsible one for finding reason in your conversations, like purposeful conversations. Anything from, again, like I said, managerial role, HR, journalism, working with people, but communication and being in that role. There is a clarity of the discussion or the topic that took place, sort of like you being the, I don't know what's that word, arbitrator. You have a water sign on your MC or 10th house cusp, so Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces. You're here to emotionally connect with people, not with everyone, but to develop deep emotional connections with people. It can be through arts, working in the fields of therapy, care, and build the ability to very deeply emotionally relate and connect with other people. And then if you have Taurus, Virgo, or Capricorn on your 10th house cusp or on your midheaven, these folks have the most sober understanding and outlook on the rules of adaptation. They're most grounded in their approach of how and when something needs to happen. So because of that, they make great rule setters. It's not so much about the field, but it's more about creating the law, creating the rules of how to respect yourself, how to value yourself, or be in charge of the rules in a specific organization. They have the most practical approach to integration and adaptation. But as I said, this is very general. We're going to go into each and every individual sign to explore more in depth what these fears and lessons are for each and every one of us. Because once we're able to put this into practice and start learning our lessons, then that's when Big Daddy reward us. And if we're living on the path of Saturn, many times after the age of 35 is when he starts rewarding us, because he realizes, okay, we are the ones who are choosing the road we take in our lives. He sees that we're taking responsibility, and then we choose where to invest our time and energy, and also easily give in and be susceptible to these pleasures and temptations and the distractions. And we're headed in the right direction for us by creating our own reality. Then he starts rewarding us because he sees that we are not dependent on anyone else for our own individual choices and choose from a place of free will. That doesn't mean you're not gonna deal with other people or make compromises on your way, but you still have a very clear and real idea of what and why you're doing something. There is a purpose to it. It's not just because, well, I don't know, or because I'm scared. The more we start valuing our own time, we're saying that I have control and I take over my life and my time and invest it in what I find meaningful. Because otherwise, if we don't, Saturn is going to force us until we do. Because time is one thing no one can control. Doesn't matter if you're rich, poor, beautiful or not. And that which we cannot control, we can only learn to value. And once we value it, then it rewards us. It's pretty much the same concept as love. You cannot control somebody to love you. But when you value and respect a person, they naturally choose to love you. And even though love is such a manipulated commodity nowadays, where we're sold on all these items and things and experiences to give us the feeling of love, to give us the impression that when we consume all of these experiences or things, we're gonna get closer to feel and understand what love is. Or even the way we are advertised to show our love by, well, I'll buy her 100 grand diamond ring instead of taking and investing the time to spend together, and that's enough for me to show that I love this person. And even if she's okay with that, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with a 100 grand diamond ring, that's not my point here. The thing is, we need to clearly understand that here in this scenario we're speaking about transaction, and that's not love. It's something completely different, and that's okay. Some people choose that. We have this transactional relationship where Let's say I buy you something and you give me something. It can be in the form of sex or appreciation or just to have some status. It doesn't matter, but that's not love. That's a transaction. The only real value is in the time you spend with another person and your ability to share joy together, independent from all of these transactional components. There could be addition, and that's totally fine, but they cannot buy love or be substitutions for that. Yes, it's absolutely wonderful to enjoy all of the pleasures together. But as I said, because love is becoming such a manipulated commodity, it's distorting the whole meaning of it by creating this false perception that it's something you can buy and you cannot. And you can only be a free choice of someone. And also, if let's say another scenario where you are spending a lot of time together and you're lounging next to each other, sitting on your phones, but there is no conversation, there is no emotional connection, you're physically there together, there is absolutely no shared presence, no emotional presence with each other. That also doesn't count for love, that counts for comfort. You're comfortable with someone. Because by value, spending valuable time together, it comes down to the presence, connection, and joy you share with one another. And that creates the experience of I belong here. I don't just exist here, or I'm not here because I'm paid to. I feel a part of this. Because the time is valuable and valued only when the experience is shared and enjoyed simultaneously. So Saturn is here to raise our fear in us, so we can learn to be responsible for our purpose and mission here in this lifetime, and act as this barrier to keep our wheels on track. The more we refuse to follow our own path, the more we awake our fears to love and to actually be present and live our lives. And once our fears are realized and we give Saturn what it wants, then what we start experiencing of our fears starting to dissolve on their own, and they don't play such a big role in our lives. They stop dictating our choices. So this whole process of adaptation to who we are and integrating our essence in life, it is that which helps to remove our fears. That's why Saturn, the traditional ruler of Capricorn, and that's why when we speak about 10th house, Capricorn and Saturn ruling Capricorn is in the retrograde motion because it calls for inner discipline, which the inner discipline is necessary to adapt to our earthly experience, to life, to here, to now. So when we speak about meaning, purpose, happiness, finding our own essence and personal resources, it is not somewhere or anywhere else or dependent on anything else but inner discipline, the discipline of our fears or of our limitations, or where we feel limited. Because when you fear just escaping through traveling or some substance, sitting and waiting and doing it doesn't help, because it requires activity. It requires us to be active participants in life and face the BS, or we got big daddy issues. We need to understand that fears, they're those that arise anxieties and insecurities within us. So the more we start working with them and working on this journey, the more secure and grounded we ultimately start to feel. And again, Saturn is about time, so it takes time. It does require time investment. It's a process. It's not going to happen from today to tomorrow. But this investment in your own time is the most valuable investment that you'll ever need to make in your life, because it's going to give you the biggest rewards and understanding about your meaning, purpose, happiness, love, etc. And unfortunately, when we don't have the courage to love, Saturn takes it away from us. It teaches us that you're going to lose something in order for you to be activated. So now let's see, by exploring each and every one of our own individual Saturn placements in our birth charts, where our deepest fears are hidden, what topic and in what area in our life, so we can understand what we fear the most and what stands on the other side of that fear, and what is the lesson behind that fear, so we no longer stay inactive and in a state of analysis paralysis of why am I experiencing these challenges in my life, but actively start integrating our own limitations into our life and start living as more fulfilled and free individuals who can make the choice to love and to live with your own meaning and purpose in life. Thank you all for being here and watching. Subscribe, like, and share. And I hope you found some of this information helpful to you. I'll see you next time. And don't let Big Daddy whip your butt any more than he should. Bye.